Okay, so we're all set?
We are set.
So I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the November 2nd, 2020 meeting of the Millis Select Board. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Zoom meeting. I'm joined by my colleagues, Mr. Pete Germain and Ms. Erin Underhill. We have Town Administrator Mike Kaczynski and our Operations Manager Karen Bure. And we have a number of folks joining us for appointments this evening. We'd like to start with a couple of announcements that we've been making consistently over the last number of weeks. We want to reinforce it. Again, polls in Millis, of course, are all located at the Veterans Memorial Building. The polls will open at 7 a.m. and they will close at 8 p.m. Those of you who may have received a card with a different time on it, I just want to make sure everyone knows that the election polls are open at 7 a.m. tomorrow and will close at 8 p.m. So anyone who's in line at 8 p.m. will get to vote, and hopefully we could have a very strong turnout. We've had already literally thousands of your fellow citizens have voted earlier by mail, so hopefully we'll have a smooth running town election tomorrow. Also on Saturday, this coming Saturday, November 7th, we will hold our fall annual town meeting. This is going to be an outdoor meeting, trying to comply with the COVID restrictions, which, as many of you know, even got a little bit more strict with the governor's announcement this morning. But we're going to proceed with the outdoor meeting. That's at noon on Saturday, November 7th, at the Millis Middle School High School parking lot. A lot of work has gone into trying to make sure that people will be able to themselves have the opportunity to hear the speakers and also to address the town meeting. So everyone is welcome to join that as well. And last but not least, we'd like to also make note of the flu clinic. Flu clinic is being held on Sunday at the Veterans Memorial Building. It's by appointment only, and the hours are 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for anyone over 8 years old. And from 10 to 11, the flu shots are available for seniors only. And all of this information is contained on the website, but we just wanted to get another opportunity to share the information with everybody. That being said, I'm going to then move to the next item on our agenda. This item is the appointment of an on-call snow removal worker. Let's need to address the board on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the board's packet is an application for employment. You'll see from Greg Wheelock. We did interview Greg within the last week. He is a Millis resident, and we feel that he would be a great person to fill this role of on-call snow removal worker. As we mentioned, we do have one person already appointed. This would be the second person. We will probably look to have a third person as well, just to make sure we have sufficient individuals available in the event of a major storm. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm requesting this evening that the board ratify my appointment of Greg Wheelock as a on-call snow removal worker for the town of Millis.
Okay, thank you very much. So this again is an on-call position with a set stipend or hourly rate if they're called to work, but otherwise they're just there to help us out as needed. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're only called in when needed. Usually during bad weather events, mostly snowstorms.
Well, hopefully we won't have too many of them. We've already had one.
And we were able to call in our very first on-call who came in to help Paul and did a great job, so it's already proving to be a good move for us.
Good. All right, any questions from the board members? There are none, and I would take a motion to approve the town administrator's.
I move that we ratify the appointment of the town administrator for Greg Keelope for on-call snow removal.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for the board to approve the town administrator's appointment of Greg Kulop as a on-call snow removal contractor. I'll poll the board to vote on this item. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
That motion is carried unanimously.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kaczynski. Moving ahead, 2 minutes ahead, I think we're okay. We have a gentleman who has expressed interest in, I think, returning to the cemetery committee. This is something that my colleague, Ms. Underhill, brought up before, so I'll let you introduce this proposed member.
Sure, thank you. I was fortunate to attend a cemetery committee meeting, and I was able to meet Mr. Wayne Simpson. He's been continuously involved and extremely knowledgeable. He's an asset to that committee based on all that he's able to contribute. Apparently, he is not currently a committee member, but still attends all the meetings and is very helpful. He expressed an interest in becoming an official committee member again, and so that is on the table for us to reappoint him to that committee tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could also speak in Mr. Simpson's behalf. Wayne's been here for the 15 years that I've been here. His next project is laying out the new section on the other side of what we call the Jewish section. We call it Section G. Wayne's laid out every part of the new Section F when we took all the trees down. He assisted us when we did Section D, when we did the sail back of all the graves. Wayne's just a great asset for the town, and I would definitely recommend his reappointment to the cemetery committee. He was the chair for many, many years after Mr. Shropshire left. He was the chair after that for many years.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I will also echo the gratitude of the town for having Mr. Simpson step forward again. Not only does he get to go to the meetings now, but he also gets to vote at the meetings if we appoint him tonight. So I would take a motion. Maybe I could put the motion from Ms. Underhill.
Sure. I move that we appoint Mr. Wayne Simpson to the cemetery committee.
Second.
Is this a 1 year, do we have 1 year annual appointments here? Is that the way
Yes.
it works?
Yep.
That's right, yep. So be appointed until the next date, which will be the end of this year.
Well,
So the
fiscal
appointment
year, right,
will be effective until June 30th.
right.
Where at which point in time he will be more than happy to have him reappointed for a full year. So it's moved and seconded to appoint Mr. Wayne Simpson as a member of the Cemetery Review Committee. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
All right, the motion is carried unanimously. Let me just jump. You have appointments, and I don't want to jump the gun for people who aren't around, and therefore I'd like to just move to the second item, the open session items. And I would indicate that I'll ask if any member of the board has a liaison update report that he or she would like to make. My only report back would be from the ESBC, which is a scheduled appointment tonight anyway. So I'll defer to Mr. Klocko when he gets on board. But Mr. Germain, any committee activity you'd like to report back to the board?
As a matter of fact, yes, the Enterprise Advisory Committee has had a meeting. We appointed officers. They were elected by the committee. Kathy McInnes is now the chair. Ed, I never remember his name, and I apologize. Kathy's on, so she can probably tell us, is the clerk. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was Craig.
Is it Egg?
Clerk. Right. And then I think Craig. No, it was, Brutus, I believe, was
Yes.
become vice chair. So we have a committee. We are going to be meeting, I believe, this coming Thursday. And if I stand corrected, Kathy, please let me know. But otherwise, we will begin undertaking our business at that time.
But, well, it's important work, and obviously quite a few issues that have to be addressed. I'm glad that we've got the committee formed and moving forward. I'm most anxious to hear feedback on the variety of issues, and obviously one of the more important ones. I mean, they're all important, but I mean, hopefully, spend some time dealing with the challenge we have with respect to sewer capacity and the sewer bylaw, and that's just one of a number of things. As everyone knows, we continue to get, I guess the good news is we continue to get developers coming to town looking for permission to engage in projects. So there's a great deal of continuing interest among developers for various parcels in town, all of which creates, of course, additional challenge for our sewer capacity. And at this point, the board is making sure that everyone who is an applicant understands the challenge, putting the challenge back on the developer to come up with solutions, not just the town. But this is really an important thing for us, both with respect to developers coming forward, but also, as we know, for developers who, frankly, would be developing projects that would be quite helpful to the town in the context of executing our housing production plan and our need to provide for additional affordable housing for residents of the town of Millis. So if that were the only thing you'd have to work on, that'd be hard enough. It's certainly quite pressing. Any other comments, Mr. Germain?
No, I mean, that is definitely one of the items on the agenda. There will be several others, and the committee will probably identify the breadth of topics that we have to deal with over the several months before the May town meeting. So I'm looking forward to reporting back to you and having the chair report back to you at future meetings.
Okay, great. Ms. Underhill, any committee that you attended you'd like to report back to the board on the activity?
Sure. Just very briefly, a few weeks ago, we had a cemetery committee meeting. There's a family's looking to donate the funds to pave a portion of an access road for easier accessibility to parts of the cemetery. So we took a look at that proposed area, and that was discussed. It looks like they're going to move forward with further discussions on it, but nothing has been set in stone yet. It was just a discussion to start some conversations.
Okay, great. Okay, again, the purpose of this agenda item was really to make sure that as members of this board attended as official liaison members, that they report back to the board as a whole. I do have one that I should have mentioned as I attended the Norfolk County Advisory Board meeting last week. The Norfolk County Advisory Board was discussing its budget, and really the purpose of that meeting was to make an adjustment to the budget. Long story short is the operating budget for the county was about $500,000 greater than the available funds So at its summer meeting, the advisory board voted a $500,000 transfer from the county stabilization fund to the operating budget. As it turned out, the revenue generated by the Registry of Deeds for the first 3 or 4, I guess 4 months of the fiscal year have greatly exceeded the estimate. This is a directly result of all the real estate transactions, refinancing transactions that are going on. So the registry had generated revenue well in excess of the $500,000 that had been appropriated from the stabilization fund for the county. So at the meeting this week or last week, the county advisory board voted to essentially refund the $500,000 to the stabilization fund and to appropriate an additional $500,000 from the receipts from the Registry of Deeds. Now, it's somewhat of a bookkeeping exercise, but as we all know, dealing with the municipal finance in cities and towns as well, anything we can do to keep services at a certain level and avoid going into stabilization this early in this difficult period, the better off we are. Now, one of the major items for the county was the budget for the Norfolk County Aggie School, which is Walpole. And by virtue of the restoration of these funds, the temporary furloughs that were issued to certain faculty members of the Aggie were rescinded. So those folks are back at work full-time, and the school is up and running just like other public schools around the Commonwealth. So that was good news from the county's point of view. So, I don't know, Wayne, are you on per chance, Mr. Clocko?
I did not see him yet, which is,
Not yet? Okay, well, he's not scheduled for 7, so. Karen, can you just make a little comment about the Bayberry Fair event that we have later in the agenda?
Sure. So the Bayberry Fair is something that I believe is held every year. Typically, they sell greenery, wreaths, and such, and the money is donated to the Millis Food Pantry. They reached out to see if they could hold the event here outside at Town Hall. But upon further reflection, they decided that it just was not really a safe, sorry, let me just admit Wayne here, that it probably wasn't the safest thing to do, looking at how COVID numbers are trending and all of that. So they are just going to donate money directly, that they have directly to the Millis Food Pantry. And I would encourage anybody who typically attends this to maybe think about making a donation to the Millis Food Pantry instead this year, just directly to them. And they're hoping that next year they can go back to having the regular event.
Well, thank you. Certainly it's an event that's been going on for many years. I would encourage those who bought their greens, wreaths, and whatnot the Bayberry Fair to consider a contribution to the Millis Food Pantry.
Right.
Appreciate the hard work of all that team, and probably, regrettably, that's the best approach this time around.
Agreed.
As you know, the governor has made some additional announcements about, restrictions on gatherings and whatnot today, actually, because of the increase in the number of cases. Okay.
Mr. McCaffrey, Wayne, and Diane, and Rich Nichols have all joined us here
Wonderful.
from the ESBC. I don't know if you're expecting anybody else, Wayne, from your committee?
I've sent the invitation out to everybody on the committee. I'm not sure who is going to join, so we will proceed whenever you're ready.
Yes, well, we have the rather unusual circumstance of actually being a few minutes ahead of schedule.
Shocking.
So if the ESBC is comfortable with starting 5 minutes early, I think that we can go ahead and get your report and then have questions and comments from the board and anybody who'd like to ask questions. So,
Great.
Without further ado, Mr. Flacco, Chair of the Elementary School Building Committee.
Well, Mr. McCaffrey, I think this is a good time to bring both you, the select board, and the citizens of Millis up to date on where the project stands. It's essentially complete. We've got a couple of minor mechanical issues that we're just watching inside the building. We think we've addressed, but we're just keeping an eye on them. The one outstanding issue is landscaping. We're not satisfied with the landscaping, and unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until the springtime when the growing season starts again in order to correct that. So we're withholding some money for that, but other than the landscaping, the project is essentially complete. And so financially, we are in a position of determining where we stand in terms of the original projections, original funding approved by the Massachusetts School Building Authority and the Millis voters. And that number, which was originally approved, was just under $52 million, of which the MSBA was reimbursing 57.27% of certain costs, many of which are capped. And so the actual funding by the MSBA of total project is really coming out to be about 40% of the total cost. And so I'm happy to inform you that at this stage, we are $3.5 million conservatively under budget. So the project will come in somewhere in the $48.5 million range, we believe. We are holding some money in a contingency for future exposures, should we need that. And certainly by the spring, when we close the project out completely, we'll be able to make a determination on those funds as well. So good news, $3.5 million conservatively under budget means that the town doesn't have to borrow that money. And it is a savings from our original projections, and something that should benefit all of the taxpayers in town.
Great.
That's certainly good news, and certainly something that the ESBC and all the folks involved should be happy with, and I think that we're all very happy that that's what the outcome has been. Are there a couple of headlines as to sort of, okay, what was it that, as the project unfolded, that was it enabled the committee and the architects and whatnot to deliver this project for less than we had originally thought? I mean, just the headlines, so to speak.
Well, I'm going to let Diane Germain jump in here, but I will tell you that my entire professional experience, and certainly my experience working for the town of Millis, it all depends on the people that are involved and the chemistry, the qualifications of all of the parties and how well they work together. And in this case, we had a very good team, and I'm going to let Diane chime in and talk about that a little bit.
Okay, can you hear? Ooh, I just lost everybody.
Oh, we can hear you, Diane.
There we go. Sorry, I was muted. Pete, turn your sound off, please. We're getting feedback. We're in the same room. Wayne asked me if I was going to share a screen with my husband, the select board member, and I said, no. This project was a really long and complicated one. But one of the reasons it worked so well is that we worked as a team. When there was a problem, the team worked it out, and that's a big part of the reason we came under budget. The team was managed by the ESBC, and it included the MSBA, our funder, the owner, the Millis Schools, the project manager, Compass Project Management, our architect, Tape Architects, and our general contractor, Agostini Bacon. The ESBC was included 5 voting members, and I'd like to kind of highlight who they were. First was our chair, Phil, I was there a little bit myself, Denise Gibbons, Rich Nichols, and Craig Schultz. And we had a various number of ex officio members, including a member of the select board who is currently here in this meeting, Jim McCaffrey, and also the two chiefs, Police Chief Sapphire and Fire Chief Barrett. We were also ably assisted by our department assistant, Kim Borst. I can't forget her for everything she did. When we started work on the site itself, the team met every Thursday morning in the construction trailer. If it was Thursday, we were in the trailer with 15 of our closest work associates. We reviewed current status, discussed all kinds of issues, and we looked at the future work that was planned for the next 2 weeks. And this went on for almost 4 years. There was also a monthly ESBC meeting, and because of the size and the value of this project, the ESBC made a decision to televise these meetings monthly and to provide the committee with a 2-week look ahead. It was a narrative of the progress of the project in those 2 weeks and telling people what was coming next, showing pictures. It was on the town website and on the Millis School Project Facebook site, and I will say we got some really great reviews from people who were happy to have the information. That's not just because I had a little to do with it. From my perspective, and Jim, this goes to your question, the team worked well together because we had a common goal. Everyone wanted to build a school that was the best we could do for the children of Millis. And if you look at the look-ahead posts, you'd see that I always said we were on schedule and on budget, and we were. And maybe I should have said we were under budget. We had a milestone. I think the number is 7 between all of the project managers and our chief. We had 7 new babies during the time of this project. Wayne's were grandbabies, but there were 4 others on the project that had babies. I don't know if I have the number right, but anyway. And the other thing that happened early on in the project, during the early construction period, the second graders from Clyde Brown got together, and they all had their little yellow plastic construction hats on, and they came to one of the gates, and they had a poster they'd made saying, "Thank you for working on our school," and they gave a big bag of candy to the construction crew. And there were a lot of smiles on the crew's faces that day. So I think I would like to say thank you to all the members of the project team for the work that they did. It was excellent work. But before I finish, I'd like to say this is my 4th project with Wayne Klockow. I'm happy to have had the chance to work with him. He works tirelessly on these projects, and it's a good thing you're not paying him by the hour, because we couldn't afford him, I don't think. Millis is lucky to have his leadership skills, and that's what I have to say. You can applaud now.
Wayne, I don't know if I can chime in, but I want to echo Diane's words. I think the team worked together really well. I have to give kudos to you and Diane for showing up to all the meetings. Like Diane just said, this is basically a full-time job. I don't envy your position, because there's a lot of stuff that you have to do that people don't see, that is not a lot of fun. And all in all, everything worked out really well. And, from someone who is in the trade and does projects of a decent size, I have to say, you did an exceptional job for the town. So, and like I said, I think Agostini Compass also did work towards the goal of providing an excellent product for the town, and which usually isn't normal for a general contractor, but I think they were a good partner in the process. So everybody worked really hard. I think there was a lot of input from everybody, and we did a really good job. Thank you for all of your help.
Thank you, Rich, as well. I mean, I did participate in the last year and a half or so as the select board liaison, and I could see the team working, and every member of the committee, the voting members, were very diligent. There were a couple of conversations that indicated there was some disagreement, but it was all worked out. And so I think that I agree with the comments made by the committee members that this is really a project that we can be proud of and that has been executed very well by all parties involved. And throughout, everybody was really, really focused on the fact that we are spending the taxpayers' money and we want to make sure that we get the greatest value for the buck. And I think this ability to come under budget is not because of shortcuts, not because of stuff that was cut out, simply because of the effective management of a large project. And I think that there should be some congratulations to all the members of the committee and certainly the chair as well. So other members of the board like to ask questions or have comments?
I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for all of the hard work. The building is absolutely beautiful, and being a parent to 3 young children, I know they're going to be enjoying their 5, 6, 7 years or whatnot in that building. It's just a great asset for the town, and it's just so well done. And thank you very much for all your hard work.
Well, certainly I echo everything that's been said, but let's be very clear. It's the management team working together that is responsible for making the project work as well as it did. And to that, I applaud the whole team effort. Granted, the leadership is critical, but I've said this about Wayne and his leadership many times. It's superb, and we're very fortunate to have him. But the key point here is we had excellent leadership. When there were issues, they worked together as a team and resolved them. And that makes all the difference in the world. And we see the results here. So we can all be very pleased at that and hope that future projects will work out equally as well. But on this one, it's a superb facility. And I kind of wish I were a kid going back to utilize some of that facility. It is magnificent. Thank you all very much.
I want to see you in the rock climbing wall, Pete.
You can see me at it. You're not going to see me on it.
Well, thank you for all your kind words. I will tell you that even with the best of intentions and having what we think is the right mix of people for various reasons, projects don't always turn out this way. So we're very fortunate, and $3.5 million is sizable. If we were to come in with a fraction of that, it would still be a good story, but this is a substantial savings over and above what we had thought we might spend. And so we're very happy that we've achieved this result. There were a number of curveballs that were thrown at us. If you recall, way back in the beginning, there was some angst over the location of the building. There were a couple of lawsuits that were filed in order to stop the building. Worked through all of those, and then at the very end, we found radon on the site and dealt with that. And so these issues all ultimately got resolved and in a good way. So we're thrilled. We can hopefully turn our attention to the other projects that we're working on at the moment, and hope to get a good result from those as well.
Thank you, Wayne. I'd just like to ask you to just make sure that everyone understands in terms of the official sort of closeout. I mean, we're reporting on a project that, from the committee's point of view is, 99.9% done, but you can't close it out. You alluded to it earlier in terms of the, landscaping and whatnot, but we still will be hearing from the ESBC because the closeout won't be for a while, and maybe you just give us the expectation as to how that will finally get closed.
Sure. Once we declare that the project is complete, and that's a notice from us to the MSBA, and that'll happen sometime next spring after we accept the landscaping. Then the MSBA will undertake an audit, which Compass, who is in this business, tells us will take at least a year. So they'll audit all of the construction documents. They'll review costs that they've previously approved and go through really a meticulous audit of the entire project. And so once that is complete, so we're probably at least a year and a half out from today before we can expect a resolution from them. Then the project will ultimately be done. Up to this point in time, the MSBA has funded $19.9 million. We've received that money and paid bills with it, so the town hasn't needed to borrow money and then be reimbursed by the MSBA. So they've been contributing as partners all along. They've so far contributed about 95% of their portion of the cost at this point in time, and they estimate pre-audit that they owe us probably another $300,000 and change in additional funds, which we would receive once that audit is complete.
Okay, so the committee can't hold its final celebration for a year and a half, is that right?
Well, we can think about it.
But you may not have to meet as frequently.
That's correct. That's correct. So we're good. We're glad to get this behind us. We're glad that it's a good story to tell. We're hope that the rest of the citizens and taxpayers feel the same way. It is a great facility. It's built really well, and it should serve us for a long, long time.
Well, again, thanks to all of you, and the three individuals who have spoken this evening happen to have the great honor to serve also on the Permanent Building Committee. So they are continuing to work on other projects, from the DPW project to the two that may be pending, which would be the Lansing Millis Building and the Senior Center, however those work out.
Right.
So no rest for the weary, right?
No, well, we certainly are weary, but no rest either. But
Okay, great.
All right.
All right, thanks to you, Wayne, to Diane, and to Rich, and all the other members of the committee. Appreciate, and I speak for the town, we appreciate your hard work, and it's great to see this thing coming in a reasonable time. And not only was it, finished and under budget, but it was certainly an on-time project. It was delivered with the original expectation has been met, so that's another great thing. And I'm glad that we have people using the building despite what's going on everywhere else, which is just a story to tell. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item we have on our agenda this evening is an issue relating to really some of the outcome of the last storm we had, not the snowstorm, but what apparently was a tornado, at least in certain parts of the town, and it had a significant impact across the town, and certainly a significant impact at Oak Grove Farm. So we have some items to discuss with respect to the Oak Grove Farm remediation, if you will. And Mr. Gazinski, could you sort of tee this up for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you had mentioned several weeks ago, we did have a severe storm that came through town and actually did damage to a number of citizens' homes, and we did have power out in some areas for an extended period of time. One of the areas that was hit particularly hard was the Oak Grove Farm area. A number of very large trees came down, and there was actually some damage to a little bit of the infrastructure there. We had some lampposts. We had a power line that was knocked down. We had damage to a window at the farmhouse there. the good news is that our insurance company will cover the damage to the infrastructure, to the house, to the lampposts, I think to a sign. The bad news is our insurance does not cover the downed trees and the cost of the removal for the trees. So there will be a need to take some action here in order to remove the trees on the property. We don't currently have any funds in the budget to cover the tree removal. We do generally, for large work, we do hire a firm to come in and assist us. And after the storm, we did have communications with the Historical Commission and the Oak Grove Commission in regards to the damage at Oak Grove. Originally, we did get some estimates or an estimate for some work to remove the trees immediately around the farmhouse. And we did receive a quote for $13,150 for that work. Subsequently, we've had some discussions with the Oak Grove Farm Commission about some of the trees in other parts of that property, and did get some additional quotes. We have a quote from one company for $29,600, a quote from another company of $25,000. In order to move forward in the short term, I am looking at the possibility of requesting a reserve fund transfer with the Finance Committee for some funds from their reserve fund to do this. But we have to determine which path to move forward in the short term, considering they do have limited funds in the reserve fund to carry them through into next summer. So we do have representatives, I believe, of the Historical Commission and Oak Grove Commission to talk about the issues on site and the need for some funding to clean up the Oak Grove farm.
Okay. So I guess that I'd like to hear from the two commissions, about what their perspective is. Maybe we'll start with the Historical Commission, which is has the house and its surroundings on its list of things that need to be done. So, Mr. Maltinsky, are you on? There you are.
I am on. I had a computer battery situation. I'm back up and running.
So could you just outline what your perspective is on your need? I mean, these are not mutually exclusive things here. They are complementary in a way, but we need to understand what we need to get done with respect to the house and then with respect to the rest of the property.
Okay, so initially, Mr. Caffrey, I got an estimate from one contractor for the farmhouse and the visible trees in the area on Oak Grove property also that were damaged or destroyed by the tornado. Upon further review with Steve McGinnis from the Oak Grove Farm Commission, he explained that there was much more severity of damage to the remainder of the property, Oak Grove Farm. So what we did is Steve and myself, mostly Steve, he walked the property with several contractors to get a complete evaluation of what damage had happened to what you can't really see from the street. You had to drive around the property, around the soccer field, around the baseball field, along Oak Grove, Ridge Street, and it was pretty extensive. A lot of trees were blown down, uprooted. There's going to be the need for stump removal, the holes to be filled, that type of thing. So initially, I did get a quote for 13,000 and change, 13,200 or so. Every tree in front of the farmhouse, besides the one right at the road, are gonna have to be cut down and stump ground and replanted, which the replanting is not part of this proposal. But basically the whole front of the house, with the wind shear, destroyed everything. There are some trees to the left of the driveway that were pushed by the DPW to make access so the tenants could get out of their rental, and for the residents to access the playground. The two estimates that we received, Steve did reach out to other people, and the third person did not come out or deliver an estimate. The amounts on the estimates, the content is the same, but the amounts really do vary in monies. The LDI estimate comes in at $29,000 and $600, but in actuality it is $20,700 because there is a line item on Ridge Street inside wall area only that is included on this for $8,900, and that is work that needs to be completed down the road, possibly by the tree warden or some type of other funding from town, because those trees are in tough shape. So the other estimate of $25,000 is pretty much apples to apples as far as what needs to be completed, as far as complete cleanup of the property at Oak Grove Farm. So if you take the $8,900 off the LDI estimate, then it comes to $20,700, and then the other one from Hoffman Tree is $25,000. The amount just around the farmhouse to remove the trees, take down the trees that were damaged, pruning some trees that were damaged in behind the farmhouse is around $4,000, and the remainder is $16,700 for the Oak Grove Farm property.
Okay. Any other questions from the board members on the estimates? Because I would like to ask the folks from Oak Grove Farm Commission to also weigh in. And hopefully the warden is on as well. He can help us to sort of walk through this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr.
The
Jermaine.
question I have on Hoffman, maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, but I see that they have a whole series of things they're going to do all at $1, as though, those are just placeholders. And then they have a $25,000 total at the bottom. Can you perhaps embellish that just a little bit?
Mr. Chairman, I believe if you read the estimate, it's just a line item. So he did not break down the jobs compared to the LDI quote. So it's just it adds up to $8 for 8 different line items. So he did not break down each area as how much it was going to cost. He just gave a grand total.
Yeah.
So I think the one is just item 1, item 2.
No, I understand what he's done, but I think that it would have been better, at least in my estimation, to understand what he thought the cost of each area was going to be and how he arrived at $25,000. But anyway.
Right. I just saw this quote yesterday, so I have not spoken to Mr. Hoffman. Steve walked the property with him, So maybe Steve can answer any questions on that matter.
Yes, good evening, select board members and other guests. The estimate you got from Mr. Hoffman is the estimate I received. Once he sent it to me, I didn't question it. We got it, we sent it to you. I did have questions about the dollar amount. It was explained to me by others that that could be part of the program he uses. This total is the total. If you were to break it down, unlike Mr. Dowd, who broke his down by the parts, the 5 different parts, the farmhouse, the upper field, the lower field, the causeway, and Ridge Street. He was a little bit more in tune with the way we discussed it with all the people that looked at the property. There was actually a total of 4 who came and visited the property. Only 2 provided estimates, Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Dowd. The other 2 gentlemen, Meyer Tree and Pathfinder Tree, which is the town preferred bidder, I guess if you'd call it. He has a bid with the town or a standing agreement of some type. He came out. They're so busy. He says, I don't think I'm going to be able to get you the bid before Wednesday or Thursday. It was tough playing tag with them to get them to come out and meet with us. John McAvoy and I spent many hours walking around the farm with the 4 different gentlemen. As far as anything being pulled out of one bid to lower the cost, I don't see that as something that would be pulled out. Because all I have is the bid on my iPad. I was unable to print a hard copy of it, so I can't compare that at this moment. I'm going to take Mr. Baltinsky's word that Mr. Dowd's bid is now down around $20,000 if we take certain work out. I don't know if that's what we're looking for, is how much work we can take out. It's how much work needs to be done. I don't know if you have any more questions, if Brady made any sense on that.
I do have a couple, but I'm not looking to what we take out or anything. I actually, to be very frank with you, my feeling is we have to rely on your knowledge and that of Mr. Maltinsky in making these decisions, because you know the people, you know what has to be done, and you know if you've worked with them before. I just was a little surprised that they didn't break it out any further. I have a couple of others. One is more general to the chair, I believe, and that is, how is our reserve fund, and are we in a position to be able to handle this at this time? And perhaps Mr. Kaczynski, I don't know.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kaczynski, you could give us the breakdown.
Yeah, the current balance in the reserve fund is $50,000, which is the amount that was appropriated back in June. So they have their full amount there. Just to give perspective to the board, if the Finance Committee were to approve a reserve fund transfer of, I believe the amount that Mr. Maltinsky gave was around $20,700.
Correct.
That would leave $29,300 in the reserve fund until next spring, till the town meeting in the spring.
Mr. McCaffrey?
Mr. Tremaine, go ahead.
The reason I'm a little concerned is whether we take the $20,000 or the $25,000 bid. It does dip in substantially to the reserve fund. I doubt there's much we could do between now and town meeting to try to change any line items in the budget, but I am concerned about pulling so much out of the reserve fund at this stage, even though we may have to do so. So I just raise that as a concern at this time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I am concerned about the dollars here because the reserve fund is to, to carry us through the entire fiscal year. Just as a matter of context, off the top of your head, Mr. Uzinski, that would be helpful. By the end of the fiscal year last year, what was the reserve? How much of the reserve did we use for the full year?
I believe we used virtually all of it by the end of the fiscal year. It does vary widely from year to year how much of the fund they use. We certainly could transfer additional funds into the reserve fund at the spring annual town meeting, but at the earliest that would be the beginning of May. So whatever is used at this time, they'd only have that remaining between now and the beginning of May.
Excuse me, this is John McAvoy from the Oak Grove Commission.
Yes, John.
I think we're going to look for that 8,900 too, because most of those trees are the town trees that fell on the trails of the back part of Oak Grove Farm, which inhibit the walkers going through in the cross-country races that go through there. So that's why we're looking for the whole amount, and we're just wondering if we're going to get any help from the federal government or anything down the road for the tornado that came through.
Well, I asked the same question earlier today, and we're waiting to hear back from the chief, I think, Barrett. He was not optimistic that just because it's designated as such that perhaps is not going to qualify because the damage is not enough. And it's a lot of damage to Oak Grove, but not a big enough issue for the town. But we're certainly going to make sure that we looked at that as hard as we can and see if there's anything available.
Okay. I got another point I want to make. The reason why we had two estimates on this is because the causeway was blocked the trees and we couldn't get back there. And Nate called me and we were back and forth because Steve was out of town. And that's why the low estimate came in first. And then when we can get through the causeway after the DPW was nice enough to go unblock it because of the cross-country races going through there, then we got out back. But since then, we couldn't get out back to see the damage. That's why the estimate went up. So I just want to explain that to everybody.
Sure. I mean, I think we need to know the full scope, right? And then whether or not we can accomplish all this with this round, I don't know. That's what we're trying to cope with that. I know there's a lot of damage, and I'm not suggesting the number is not a real number, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the real number here, put it where it should be, is more like 30,000 rather than 20. Now, that doesn't mean we can do it all at once, but doesn't mean we can't do it all either. It's just a lot of money vis-a-vis the reserve fund, because to commit that level of expenditure out of the reserve fund this early in the fiscal year is, potentially a problem for what we move forward. Is Brutus? Are you on the call? Karen, do you know if he's on?
He is on.
He's there.
Brutus?
May I ask a quick question, Mr. Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
What's the possibility we could request that we use?
I'm here.
I hate
There
to
he is.
use this, but the stabilization funds to assist us in this.
Well, stabilization can only be, I believe, can only be appropriated by the town meeting.
It can, but the question,
And there's no way to bring it to the town meeting this week because no one has any notice of it. Doesn't mean we can't call us if we wanted to utilize stabilization. Now I should allow the town administrator to explain it, but I believe that's the problem with stabilization.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. The town can certainly use stabilization with a 2/3 vote at a town meeting to fund it. but it would require an article at a town meeting, and unfortunately, it's too late at this point to add that to the upcoming town meeting in order to properly fund it from that source at this point.
I was hoping that perhaps because it was an unforeseen emergency, there might be a way around that, but apparently not.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, town council will tell us that without notice prior to the meeting of such an action, it would be out of order because the public is not generally made aware of it. And it's a little different than us being able to declare an emergency during the select board meeting. Yeah, because that's really up to us. But I think that, the short-term answer is I don't think it's allowable. That doesn't mean you can't decide you're going to hold a special town meeting to address the issue. Otherwise, you're going all the way till the spring.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cantarigi, I think you're on, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I have, go ahead.
Clearly, we need to know the big picture too, not only what's going on at Oak Grove, but in general, the tree maintenance is clearly a problem in any event.
It is, and I think you're well aware that I was seeking additional funds at this town meeting, $60,000, and that's on there for 40. We still have even with that amount of money, we still have a lot of trees need to be removed in town. So using a specialized service like we used last fall, we're looking at different areas, like I said, to get the maximum tree removal for the dollar that can be done, because last time we removed over 350 trees. So I intend to do that this time in areas that we've looked at doing is area on the Birch and Forest, and also up in Ridge and Orchard. And I look at high priority areas where we get a lot of trees taken out that are a true concern. I mean, any tree can fall, but a lot of these larger trees, they can fall on houses or, potentially for higher personal damage. So that's the ones we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. And Steve?
unfortunately, I was unable to, I have it on my iPad, I cannot bring up Mr. Dowd's estimate. Mr. Maltinsky said that from Mr. Dowd's estimate, not $8,000 or $9,000 could be removed. I can't see that. I wish you would explain a little bit more, because I have read both of them. What would be removed from one that can't be removed from another? Not that I want to remove anything from either of them, but I'd like a little more explanation, since I'm not able to look at it at this time. I had it, and I didn't get it back. Could you tell me, Mr. Chairman, ask Mr. Maltinsky that question?
Yes.
Explain to me what he's going to remove for one that cannot be removed from another bid.
Well, nobody's going to remove anything because we're all going to decide what we think we can propose. But if he has a proposal that would give us some opportunity to reduce the cost, I think we should listen to it. So, Nate, would you like to go ahead and explain it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yes, on the second page of the LDI estimate, it says Ridge Street inside of wall area only. So,
Nate, excuse me, interrupt you for a second. Karen, can you put that LDI letter up on the screen so people can see it,
I can.
perhaps?
You want the newest one from LDI, right? Not the original. Correct, Nate?
Well, the most comprehensive one.
The most comprehensive one, right? All right. Bear with me 1 minute.
By task.
Just bear with me here.
There of 1013.
This is this one, I believe. Yes, this one?
Okay.
Can you see it? Okay.
yeah, second page.
Second page.
So, okay.
There you go.
Yeah,
How far down do you want to look? Actually, let me,
That's good right
I can
there.
make it a little smaller, I think, so you can see it. I don't want to make it so small no one can read it, but. How's that?
Yep. So there's a whole line item number 2, remove tagged trees inside of wall area, chip, brush, remove large wood, safety prone dead wood, and remove hanger stumps to remain. So that is additional work of trees that, particularly, I don't believe that I saw them that they were storm damaged trees, but trees that are compromised and would probably fall under Mr. Cantareggi's proposal to take care of trees that are dangerous in town. Mr. Hoffman's estimate does not include these trees to be removed in his estimate. He does say on Ridge Street, remove down limbs, brush hog along the street, remove widowmakers, which are dangerous branches, storm damaged limbs, hazard branches, remove multiple trees, chip into woods.
Submitted. That's what you're going by.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Cantareggi.
so as I look at these 2 bids, and I know that the town went through the due process of where the bids are over $10,000, less than $50,000, and we start, but the bids are getting to a point, I would almost say that they're not comparable, because when you start removing items from each one, you're getting quotes that are not doing the same work. Mr. Hoffman has line items in there that represent the dollar bid, and I think they could open up the town to issues where either bidder could challenge the bid because the way it went down, because typically when a bid's put out, specific works outlined, and all bidders are bidding on the same exact work. It doesn't say anywhere in these quotes that you can do line item work. I know we want to do all the work, but when you start reducing it to fitting in your budget, that's not the way it was presented. So I think there could be a problem with the bids if you go that road.
Brutus, can I just chime in?
Yeah.
This is John McAvoy. Steve and I did walk with all these contractors. We gave them the same scope of work, so they were all shown all the scope of work. And we did send the town probably 15, 16 pictures, so I don't know if there's any way they can put some of those up to show them how it fell on the trails. You know, like I explained before, a lot of these hangars were down on the pass where the cross-country people run, and from the storm, these all came down from the storm. Where the cross-country people came, run through, and a lot of the residents use those as walking paths along Ridge Street. So they were all new breaks, they weren't old breaks coming from a lot of those trees.
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Yes, go ahead, Bruce.
I am not questioning, I'm sure that, actually I know for a fact that I've talked to Mr. McGinnis also, I know there's been a lot of time with the people who are bidding on this, and actually, I think they're disappointed some people didn't provide bids. All I'm saying is when you look at these final documents, they're for bids that don't necessarily match. The information, it wasn't like the town put out a bid and say, okay, how are you going to remove this specific item? What happened here is that the applicant or the guy that wants to do the work provided information and said, this is what I'll do. And that's not matching what, these 2 different people or 3 different people are doing. I mean, there's work out there, but I'm just saying it's kind of a tricky thing for the town to look at that way, through the procurement process.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes, certainly it's a valid point. I think for the purposes of tonight's discussion, I think where we want to get to is to determine what work we feel is essential to move forward at this time, and then to follow up with the Finance Committee to ask for the reserve fund transfer for that amount of work. Having said that, we can certainly reach back out to these 2 proposers with a clarified bid specs to outline exactly the work we're asking them to do and get updated quotes so that, there's no ambiguity or anyone is feeling that they were not provided the proper information to provide an accurate proposal. So It's a valid point. I think, it would be beneficial to go back out to these two firms, but it still leaves the question as to what we want to move forward with at this time based on the reserve fund.
Just one clarification, because I think it was mentioned briefly, the contractor that we will be using, or probably will be using for the other tree work in town,
That's Pathfinder. We can certainly reach out to them
Yeah, we don't
again
have a
and
quote
see
yet.
if they're willing to put a bid in. My understanding is they couldn't meet the timeframes that we had set out for them.
Can I speak, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Steve McGinnis. I can't see myself, so I don't know if you can see me. I didn't want to go back to the beginning on this because it's time consuming. And initially, I was away when this happened. I left Millis not 2 hours before this tornado came through. And I ended up on the Cape, and I decided no vacation for the summer. I was staying down there. I wasn't going to come back. I have almost as much damage in my own home, which is directly across Cassidy's Field from Oak Grove. That's my problem. But I understand. Some people had damage, some people didn't. My next door neighbor lost every white pine in his yard. There was serious damage done. The initial bid did not include, the initial bid of around $13,000 didn't include anything behind the playground that you couldn't see. There's a copse of trees on the downslope from the playground. There's 3 trees down, snapped off high above the ground. I didn't see them the very first time I went. Obviously, the first bidder did not see them. So as we had more time to walk through and see the damage got progressively larger and more intense, if I can say. The damage on the Exchange Street side of Oak Grove Farm stops about 150 feet down on the causeway. I don't know if anyone besides Mr. Maltinsky and a few others have ever walked on that property and have any idea where this damage is actually located. No one, in this whole thing, we didn't hear from the town. I would have thought maybe somebody might have reached out to us and said, hey, what's going on down there? We drive around, we see all this damage. Didn't hear from a soul. I made one attempt to speak to senior staff. They were busy, didn't happen. This is a very complicated issue for someone like myself who's never done this before, seeking bids. Okay, I don't know about Mr. Maltinsky. If that's the case, he had an opportunity to speak with the powers that be, the senior staff. I did not. There was a conference call held. I was not involved. So I wasn't able to put in my nickel and say the damage is substantially higher, other than saying we've got to stop until we can get a handle on this, which happened at a couple of previous selectmen's meetings, and we held off from meeting with the finance committee. Okay, there's serious damage. The first is the farmhouse. The second is the trees in the what used to be called the alley. Some of the trees, you can see the damage on the ground. That doesn't include cracked and damaged trees that are still standing. Behind the playground, that area where I said there are at least 3 trees that have fallen over. Unseen by anybody, there are trees that you cannot see unless you walk down and look into the area that I'm talking about. Go down the causeway, the DPW moved trees out of the way, pushed them off to the side, but the cracked and broken trees are still there. If somebody wanted to walk down, we could do the same kind of a view with the town administrator and maybe a member of the Board of Selectmen, and they would look and see if you want to do that. Or you can accept the bid or not accept the bid, and we can get the damage at least in the front part of it, taken care of. So the Oak Grove Farm Commission's feeling, we wanted to do it, and Mr. Maltinsky might agree with me, that he wanted to be able to split this up and take care of the farmhouse, only the farmhouse. Because there are people living there. There are people living there, and it's really probably the site that people see the most. They see that, but we can't split bids. We understand that. We were told that. So now we had to join together. The Oak Grove Farm Commission members, myself and John McAvoy, we walked down with 4 separate bidders from 4 companies. Pathfinder wouldn't, I don't think they were really interested in doing the work because there was damage there that we wanted rectified, and they said this is so dangerous that they would not send their men into the area to clean it up unless they were able to use cranes and other mechanical devices to pull it out. There are branches down, and if you were to go in and try to cut them up, the whole tree could fall on you. And these are professionals. The damage is serious.
No.
If you think we can, if Mr. Maltinsky can take money out of this bid, I don't think that's the time or place to do it now. If you want somebody from the town who makes the decisions would come down there and take a look and see the damage. And then you decide what is put off and what should be done right away. Now, as far as some of the damage along Ridge Street, I spoke to Mr. Cantareggi. The unwritten rule about that and his proposal to do damage around town, it doesn't look like it fits in to his proposal based on the amount of money that the town is going to provide him to take down the trees in the area. There are 7 or 8 oak trees that died from gypsy moths that didn't fall down in the storm, but are going to fall down this winter if not the next hurricane that comes through. They're going to fall on the Oak Grove side of the wall, but they're town trees. That's a separate issue that's muddied this whole situation. Those need to come down as well. But there is no plan for that. Some of the trees that fell down on Ridge Street, town trees, fell from the town side of the wall, fell onto Oak Grove Farm. I guess we're responsible. That has always been the unwritten rule. If it's on the town side and it falls in Oak Grove, it's Oak Grove's responsibility. If Oak Grove's tree that falls over the wall onto the town side of the wall, it's Oak Grove's responsibility. It's always our responsibility, and we have the least ability to take care of this stuff. And there are incidents and examples that I could give you, well, I would not tonight, where a tree from Oak Grove fell on the town, and we had to pay to get rid of it off the street. I didn't want to get into this tonight. That's why I was trying to stay in the background and quiet. I think the best thing to do from my perspective, and I don't know about there's other members on the board of the Oak Grove Farm Commission, is to have at least 2 members of at least 1 member of the selectmen and maybe the town administrator. We do not have to walk through the whole place. A lot of it can be driven too, but you cannot see the damage from outside Oak Grove. You have to go in Oak Grove and go down the side of the street along the trail, and that's when you really see the damage.
Steve, this is Sue McAvoy. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I did send 15 pictures that were labeled today that really took you from the front of the property to the back of the property. And some of those pictures were labeled Ridge Street, walking trail, town tree down, down along the back field. So when we're looking at that bid and we're trying to remove that piece is not being removed because there are trees that are old or may fall down that part of that 8,900 there are trees that are down from the storm. Some of them were cut by the DPW, so you are going to see things that have been cut, but they are not removed, they are not cleaned up. It makes it very difficult for people to walk there. There are hangers that are dangerous. So while I agree with Brutus, I think it's very hard to remove something because then you are changing these estimates. I think as members of the Oak Grove Farm Commission, yes, the two estimates are very different. As far as the way they were written, does look like a program that Hoffman Tree is using, that their description is very similar to the other description. However, they didn't break down the price. Would it have been lovely if the price had been broken down? Yes, it is. Would have been a lovely thing for them to do that. They did not do that. So we're left with comparing a unit of work with no price as opposed to price for this and price for this. We do have the pending estimate from Pathfinder, which may or may not come in. As we all know, all these companies are really quite busy. And while they may come and look at this work, that doesn't necessarily say they're all willing to do this work. So I think that's where we're left. Would we have liked our two estimates to look very similar in price as far as broken down? Yes, but I think every contractor that was taken through the complex was taken by both Steve and John together, explaining the work so that what was explained to them was the same estimate. They were very careful, both John and Steve, to say has to be the exact scope of work from both of you. I don't think the two amounts are that far from each other that you're looking at, well, one has this amount and one has this. If you were looking at a far greater amount, what are we looking at? $4,900. So yes, it's a big amount, but it's not so far to the realm that we could have been different by their estimates, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But as far as walking the property, certainly welcome to walk it, but I think if you take a look at the labeled pictures, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what that property looks like. And I have certainly way more I could share if people would like to see it.
And Sue, or Chairman McCaffrey, I just want to add that, Sue, we did forward those pictures on to the whole select board as well as some other people today. I'm unable to pull them up, I think, on my screen.
Okay.
But yes, they did. Everyone did get a chance to see them, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Brutus.
Yes.
I did go out, after speaking with Mr. McGinnis, there are 7 large oak trees that I would consider in town property, in a public right of way that falls into the purview of the tree warden, that do need to be removed, and as Mr. McGinnis said, sooner than later. And, you know, funding's available and timing, I just can't commit to, I haven't committed to any specific tree anywhere in town, just because we don't have the funding to do them all. But those trees are definitely on the list, and they're in an area that, you know, is a high hazard area because of the amount of traffic and everything else there. So if, you know, with the appropriation at town meeting this fall, and you know I'm going to be asking for more money next spring, I'm sure those trees will be coming down.
Well, as a general proposition, and I'm not committing anybody to anything, we need to get this to a point where tree removal is not a warrant article, it's an item in the budget. Because, as the tree warden has told us repeatedly, this is not a problem that's going to go away, it's going to be with us for forever. So for the town to go forward and not provide an adequate budget, or at least an annual budget we can count on, then we're going around and around with situations like this, and we've got no way out. Now, it's easy for me to say, but I mean, I really believe that this is a critical component. And to leave the trees to an article when we have enough money is not getting the problem solved. So
I will say, Mr. Chairman,
as we go into the budgeting process, I'm interested in both warrant articles and whatnot, but also looking directly into the budget itself for the DPW to have, an item that provides at least a reasonable level of expenditure for tree management. I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming out at this point.
And I agree with you.
Excuse me.
And I know Mr. McKay has increased the tree budget over the last couple of years. I mean, in all fairness, between the droughts that we've had, the gypsy moth, and then we also, just because we're out, we got the Asian borer. These are very uncertain times. I kind of imagine it was like kind of back in, the 50s when we first got Dutch elm disease and all the elm trees started dying, in town. So, you have to react towards it. I'll work with Mr. McKay, and I think we can come up with a realistic, for the operating budget next year, but looking at a 5-year average and, where we think we're going to go. But you are correct. It does make sense to put, appropriate funding in the operational budget instead of, me coming forward asking, every year more and more and more.
Well, that doesn't mean you might not supplement, but again, I think that as we go through the budgeting process, we're going to need, if we send to the departments instruction to give us a level service budget, then we're going to get back the level service budget proposal that doesn't include this. And I think we need to get ahead of it if we can. But that doesn't solve tonight's problem.
Right. That's the concern I have, Mr.
I'd like to ask, the board members, so they have questions now, additional questions, Mr. Germain?
Well, it seems to me, there's no question we have to do something. But how we make a choice or how a choice is made where we don't really understand apples to apples in terms of the bids is the concern I have. I don't know precisely what it is they're going to remove, grind, whatever, on looking at the two charts. Now, maybe Mr. Maltinsky or Mr. McGinnis do know that, but I'd certainly like to see it where I can say, okay, we have these two bids on these items, and now we will make a decision as to which one we move forward on. I can't see how we move forward because I don't even know what we're precisely agreeing to with what's been presented to us. And that's what's bothering me more than anything. It's not that it doesn't have to be done. I absolutely concur it has to be done. I don't know what we're getting done is the problem.
Ms. Underhill?
I agree that we need to get the work done to handle the trees for everyone's safety, and because we obviously can't leave the properties like that. I do agree with the tree warden, with what the tree warden had said though, and what Mr. Germain was just mentioning about the format of the bids and what they're including. Like, if they could be clearer, I think that would make the decision a little bit easier, or at least I feel like we just need more backup in terms of what exactly we're expecting to be done, and to hold all parties accountable. I also agree with Mr. McCaffrey about the budget discussion that we will need to have to add some of this in, because it does sound like a regular maintenance item that we should wait until all the trees are going to fall on all the houses to fix them. So I obviously support getting this work done to take care of the properties, but I also would like to see a better quote, I guess.
Well, let me ask, in terms of the clarification of the quotes, if that's the way we'd like to see it. It seems to me that, well, let me ask of the chief procurement officer. To what extent, can this be done through the selectman's office to give the board a little bit more comfort that we've got an apples to apples comparison here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As I mentioned earlier, we could simply reach out to the two bidders. I don't think we would need to take necessarily a fresh walk on the property with them. If they've walked the property and they're aware of what the condition is out there, and we just need to determine exactly what we're asking for a bid from each of them, the scope. So each of them has a clear view of that, and then give them a certain number of days in order to respond to that. And if they've already walked the site, I don't think there's a need for them to do that again. We could also send that out to the third company and ask them as well if they'd be able to submit a bid within a certain period of time. And that would clarify it up. There's much less formality when it's under $50,000, but you do need to make sure they're all putting a proposal that's apples to apples.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
Kathy McInnes. I must interject here because my family is Oak Grove Farm. I'm curious now why certain members of the select board want to know how the stumps are going to be ground, where the branches are going. The two important members of the commission walked with the parties that were invited to bid or that were going to bid on the job. They know exactly what has to be done, and it was mentioned in the quotes. Maybe not as perfect as what's done when the town asks for bids on building a school, but the Oak Grove Farm commissioners are farmers. They're not administrative people. And I might want to add, because I know Steve wouldn't, he reached out to ask for help to prepare the forms one time and didn't receive an answer. So it was left to him and Sue and John McAvoy to, on their own, try to prepare a bid package for the people. And what is better than walking with them individually throughout 100 acres of the property and show them what was storm damage? This is what we want fixed. And that's what they submitted. Now, what I see is another delay. I see kids playing on the branches and trees that are behind the playground. I see elderly people walking their dogs, and what's going to happen with them. There's damage there. And to say that I don't think you should rewalk in Oak Grove Farm, I think the entire board with the town administrator, if they're concerned about what the bids are, take the bids and walk the property. But I just wish something would be done tonight, because a lot of people, the commissioners, take this personally and they're losing sleep over the damage. And I can't recall the last time they came to the town for help on this. And they need help. They don't have the money to do it themselves with what they've been given. And Lord knows you could see Steve and John over there cutting the brush, and they're dragging it back to my yard and doing little burn piles with it. They're doing as much as they can. But at some point, the town has to step up and do some work also, Mr. Chairman. And I'm just pleading with you to at least put in some money tonight and not ask for more particulars on the scope of work and the bids that were presented. The commissioners know the bids. They know what they're going to be getting for work to be performed. And to me, that's the Oak Grove Farm Commission, and I don't think the selectmen should be concerned about the nitty-gritty of a bid. Thanks a lot for my ranting and raving.
Mr. Chairman, this is Sue McAvoy. Can I just ask for clarification perhaps on the bids? When I read one of the bids, it seems pretty detailed and it's broken up by price. And there is one that is not as detailed and isn't broken up on price. So are we asking for both of them to redo this, or are we asking for the person who has not broken down by price to redo his? Because when I'm reading from LDI, I think they're pretty clear. Around the Oak Grove farmhouse, remove tag trees, chip brush, remove large wood, prune branches, maple tree off back of house, and gives an amount. And then step 2. And so he's done that in each area that he's working at, where the other one from the other contractor has done a unit of work, describes the farmhouse, says removed marked trees and storm damaged branches. He then breaks down farmhouse stumps, grind the 5 stumps, remove chips, replace with dirt and seed, locate underground utilities. He just doesn't give a price for those individual amounts. So I guess for me, a clarification is you want both of them to do more detailed or one to be more detailed?
Mr. Kaczynski, how would you respond to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I guess the core issue here, first and foremost, is defining what the scope is. If there is broad agreement of what the appropriate scope is, and if the scope is as outlined in the bid from LDI, that comes out to $29,600, and that is the scope that is agreed upon, then I would recommend simply going back to the other company and putting out the different parts of the proposal again and saying, we need your updated quote that breaks down to proper detail as to each portion of the project. So no, if you're satisfied with the scope of the proposal as submitted by LDI, they do not need to necessarily, resubmit it. But if the other bidder has not met that threshold, it's not clear, then you'd want to have them come back and submit a clarified bid. And then as well, if you'd like to submit it, forward it out to the other company, to have them look at it as well, send it up to Pathfinder. But that's how you do it. I think the core issue here is not that issue, it's defining the scope and how it will be funded.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Maltins.
After all the review and some great rebuttal and great input tonight, I believe that, these two estimates do not compare apples to apples. So I believe that Mr. Kaczynski and maybe Mr. McKay should take over the bidding process here, reach out to all the bidders and the potential third one, do an apples for apples estimate for the work proposed, and then take it from there, and then relieve the Historical Commission, the Oak Grove Farm Commission, of overseeing the work to be done. It seems that it's a little tough for everyone to deal with, and I think that maybe Mr. Kaczynski is the best candidate to resolve this matter and move it forward.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Yes.
It was never my intention was to stay back, and certainly any help from Mr. Kaczynski would be helpful. But Mr. Maltinsky has a very small, specific area that needs to be dealt with. The area around the farmhouse. On the original bid, if you took all of Oak Grove's Farm Commission portion of work out of that initial bid, I believe Mr. Maltinsky's farmhouse area was around somewhere less than $5,000. We have much more serious damage that could be taken care of in some phases. Possibly Mr. Cantareggi's tree warden hat on some of it. The trees that fell from town-owned property onto Oak Grove, which is not serious safety hazard now because of the DPW's excellent job of moving it to the sides of the field. Other trees in that area that have fallen down but are not a danger to pedestrians because they're away from the trails. Mr. Maltinsky's area needs to be done first, and then we could deal with what's the other 107 acres of Oak Grove Farm at another time soon after. But I don't want you to take anything out of that either bid, because it's just not, I don't think it's appropriate to either of those bidders to do that. We need to have some damage cleaned up. If we get an amount and that's all it covers, then we'll just leave the rest of the damage. We'll just leave it where it is, because the town doesn't seem, no one wants to go look at it to see the extent. So I guess, I know it's tough to get out there. I'm retired. I guess everybody else is working full time and they can't get out there. But John McAvoy and I could spend probably a solid 8 hours. We could take any two of you out there in an hour and you could see everything we've seen. And you wouldn't have to walk, but a short distance. We can drive you to every place we need to see. But I wish you would just take care of the Historical Commission's damage, because that's driving this whole thing. The initial bid came from the Historical Commission. We weren't involved. And when I stopped it, when I got back from my vacation, they said, we've got to separate this out. We can't do it. I don't want to move forward with the exception of the Historical Commission's farmhouse area, where there are people going in and out, and then maybe we can get a second bid or a revised bid from the two bidders. So we're saying apples and apples, not apples and oranges. I haven't spoken to any of those people. I wouldn't have called Mr. Hoffman because I didn't think it was appropriate. Somebody submits a bid, well, am I going to interfere with it? I don't know. I don't know what the legal part of that is. I should have asked Mr. Clarko. He probably could have told me.
Chairman McCaffrey?
He did such a good job with the school, much more complicated than this. But there's some serious safety hazards at Oak Grove Farm. If what the gentleman that came to us, every one of them used a term when they saw some of the branches hanging in the trees. They called them widow makers. Now I don't know, they could have been widower makers because they can fall on anybody that walks around those trails. We can't get them out. Professionals have to do it. Some of them are over the streets of this town, along Ridge Street. If you drive along, we can show you numerous branches that are totally loose from the tree they grew off of, that a good wind is going to take them down. Do you want to, I don't know where you want to go with that. And the trees that Mr. Cantareggi said need to be done, well, maybe they'll be done now, maybe they'll be done next year. But when they fall down, they fall onto the trails along the Ridge Street Trail. And I'm sure all of you, especially the ones that live in that area, see the people walking there all the time. No bad trees fell down, only good trees, with a couple of exceptions. I wish those maples and oaks had fallen down. We could go out there and cut them up and get rid of them. So that's all I've got to say. You can put me back on mute, or I'll put myself on mute.
Erin?
Yes. I will say personally, and I may very well echo other members of the board, that I don't believe anybody's disputing the amount of damage that's happened. We've seen the pictures, and I agree that it's a hazard. There's so many reasons why I would agree that all of this needs to be addressed. In terms of procedurally handling it, though, we definitely need the bid so that we're able to compare. The problem is, I don't know if there's any value in trying to piecemeal anything, like accepting somebody's partial bid to deal with the area around the farmhouse. I believe that we should be resolving the damage. Obviously, there's different levels of risk. The farmhouse has tenants. There's risk to people on trails. There's risk near the playground. All of these that I personally would be concerned with. So I believe the work needs to be done. I just would like to see at least more than one bid that's outlining that. If I did think it was an interesting suggestion to see if perhaps the bid management should be conducted elsewhere, and somebody else coordinate that effort. If that's appropriate and makes sense, then I don't see a problem with that either. I just want the members of the commissions to know that you're being heard, and I don't think anybody's disputing that this is a problem and we need to fix it. And outdoor spaces such as Oak Grove is, in my opinion, really important, especially right now, given everything that's going on. That's kind of what we have left. So I wanted you to know that you're being heard and that I personally would like to move forward with something. I just also think we need another more accurate bid that is listing out, a pricing scheme so we understand where they're getting their total from.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do agree that perhaps there's some benefit to doing this in phases, simply because the finance committee may or may not want to expend a very large portion of their reserve fund all at once. Having said that, I think we could certainly move ahead and just get a updated bid. I don't think that would take very long. I have no objection to going out and walking the property with either member of the Historical Commission, Oak Grove Commission, Select Board. But my simple comment was that I didn't want to go back through that full process, which might slow down moving forward with at least a phase one approach of removing trees and taking the next step. So, I certainly be open to going out there and reviewing the property, and certainly if a member of the board was interested in doing that as well, that would be great. But I think we can go ahead and certainly at least get some clarifications on the bids in a very short period of time so that we don't have to delay at least a first phase of this of moving forward. And then planning to get the rest of the issues addressed there as soon as possible. And perhaps once we're ready for that second phase, whether that be a month or whatever, we can go back to the finance committee if we feel that it needs to be done, before next spring.
Okay, let me just ask this because, again, I want to make sure that if we do another round of getting some information, it'll be something we can act upon. My personal opinion at this stage of the game is that the proposal from LDI, which was dated 10/13/20, as I read through it, and having, looked at the pictures, and certainly I have been over to Oak Grove, gives me a good description of what the work they're going to do by category. So it's a bid that looks to me to be a good bid. Good in the sense that I can understand it and make a judgment. What to do with them is, they're offering to do this work. They're not offering to do it in pieces. So the question I would like clarified from LDI is whether or not they'd be willing to break this up into pieces that we could digest a little bit very easier in terms of the budget. And from Hoffman, honestly, if this is all they propose, then I would vote to reject their bid because it's incomplete. Because they're not giving me the same kind of detail that LDI is giving. But I think they need an opportunity to come back if they'd like to. And if there's a third person, that's fine. And I understand the urgency, and I understand the need. I think we all agree on the need. I am concerned about going to the Finance Committee and asking for 60% of our entire annual reserve fund for this particular project. That will be just put it right out there. So that doesn't mean I can't support it ultimately, but I think we really need to get at least clarification on this bid from Hoffman and get clarification from LDI that they're willing to do it in pieces. And if the town's contractor that's doing all the other work wants to weigh in, that's fine. I think it's the work has been done by Oak Grove and the Historical Commission. I think the bid process at this stage of the game needs to be taken on by the town administrator and the town office with the input from those two parties that are the ultimate customers, the Oak Grove Farm Commission and the Historical Commission, because if we have to prioritize this, and do it in stages. We have to get agreement from folks as to what the right process would be. Now, I don't think this is going to take us 3 months. I think we can get this done and probably bring it to the board by the 16th so that we can try to get the work going on. That's what I would like us to do at this point. So I don't sense from this board that we're willing to commit to this bid at this point in time. And I just ask informally if my colleagues would just indicate that that's the case, or if they would like to move forward on these bids tonight, then we can consider them. Mr. Germain?
I happen to agree with what you stated, and I tried to state that up front myself, is that essentially we're going into a triage process. We're phasing it, however you want to phrase it. The bottom line is we need to do the initial cleanup, and we shouldn't defer it any longer than absolutely necessary. But we need to go in with an understanding of the total scope of the project, regardless of how many phases, how quickly we can get it, and knowing what we're going to be getting as a result of going into the project. Because, like you, I'm concerned that if we can't present it, and if it isn't presented in that structured manner to the Finance Committee, they'll be coming up with the same concerns, and it'll get delayed. And I don't want to see us delay it any longer than it has to be, but we also have an obligation to make sure that all the bidders understand what exactly they're bidding on so that they can bid on the same thing and we know what it is that we're looking at. If LDI represents the basis for that, I'm all for it. If LDI does not, for example, if somebody looks at that and says, well, LDI said Oak Grove needed this, but they didn't include something, I wouldn't know it at this stage. And that's where it's important that Steve, and others be able to communicate with Mr. Kaczynski and get it structured so that we know what we're talking about when we award these bids.
Okay, I think Ms. Underhill certainly agreed with that, or this approach that I've outlined. So we've all said it in a different way, but it's kind of the same thing. I do believe that what I've heard from members of the Oak Grove Farm Commission is that the LDI proposal, from their point of view, meets their requirements in terms of the scope of work. I just want to clarify that from the point of view of Oak Grove and I guess, and also Nate from Historical Commission, looking at their bid, you understand what it is, and you believe it covers the work you think needs to be done. Is that correct?
From the Oak Grove Commission?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Okay. So we can ask them to add anything they want, but from the point of view, I'm going into this next round of, sort of rebid, if you will, with the opinion that LDI is the kind of, what I want to see from the other bidder, if he's interested, is what LDI has described. And the bid by price is going to be important, particularly if we can't, the bid by task is important, particularly if we can't afford the full price for, let's say, this go-round, and have to defer some of it to budgeting in the spring.
Yes, Jim, I talked to Steve about this, and we're trying for the whole scope of work. We'd like to have it all done, but this is why we broke it down into phases, just in case something like this would happen. But we're trying to go for the whole scope right now.
Well, I totally agree with that approach. We need to know what we're up against. And I'd much rather have you tell us now that it's the $30,000 job and find a way to get there, as opposed to a surprise when you come back next year for more. So I appreciate exactly the approach you've taken. I think it's the right way to go. And I would just like to, the board would like to see this other firm come back and have something a little bit more comprehensive by, breaking down the price by project.
That's fair.
So we can do that. And this is something we're asking the town administrator's office to take over, not to do it instead of you, but to do the legwork so that you guys can look at it again and say, yep, this is apples to apples now. And at the point, if it's apples to apples, and we would ask the Oak Grove Farm and the Historical Commission to make their recommendation to us. Not just do this on our own, so. I think that's what we'll do, and I think hopefully you understand that we're trying to be committed. This is the town's responsibility to address the issue on Oak Grove. That's my view. To come up with the funding that, as best we can, to address the issue. It's the town's park, and you guys have done everything to make it, get it where it is today, and now we need help, and the town needs to commit. So.
Just a
Okay.
point of clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And I'll mute myself again. So the Historical Commission is gonna step outside their little bailiwick of the farmhouse and make it, getting extra, maybe more information. No, you said that they need to go out and look at the other part of the farm and have a say on what happens on that.
That's not what I said. So I would ask that the Historical Commission look at their part of the project, because they have a responsibility to look at. I'm not asking them to go and do your job for you, because the farm is something that we've entrusted to the Oak Grove Farm Commissioners. I'm not looking to create conflict here. I'm looking to create some way of reaching consensus that this is the right way to go. And I didn't hear you or any other member of the Oak Grove Farm Commission question whether or not the component that would address what's going on at the farmhouse was inconsistent with what you were trying to do. It's just a piece of it.
It is not inconsistent, but it's a very small piece of the entire process, and the Historical Commission's needs, I understand them because I've been over there more times in the last month than I had ever been before, are different than ours. So whatever Mr. Maltinsky decides is appropriate for his portion is fine with us, because he would know better. So I just, but, I heard you. I heard what you said.
Well, okay, I mean, I don't think what I'm saying is inconsistent with that. Because
Mr. McCaffrey?
The Historical Commission has two issues: the building, which we think we're gonna cover with insurance, and then the trees surrounding the building. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to hear from them as to how they look at this when we get these bids and we get an apples to apples kind of comparison. And I'm not asking them to go and look at the whole farm. They can certainly go if they'd like. And Mr. Maltinsky, I mean, you want to weigh in here?
Yes, Mr. McCaffrey. Roughly to do the work around the farmhouse is around $4,000.
Okay.
That's to clean up everything and make it presentable again. I have looked at the rest of the property. There's been substantial damage.
That's the first item on the LDI proposal.
Correct.
Oak Grove Farmhouse. Remove tag trees, chip brush, large wood, et cetera, stump grinding. 3,200 plus 800. And that's what you guys need.
That is what we need to do our area, correct.
Okay, well then, if that's the case, we certainly would be willing, happy to share with you whatever clarification comes in on the other bids, but we'd leave the lion's share of the review of the rest of it to the Oak Grove Farm Commission.
Yes.
Are you okay with that?
Yes,
All right,
absolutely.
that's what we'll do. I'm not trying to create conflict, I'm trying to create collaboration, that's all. And I think we have it. Let's not put too many cooks in the kitchen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCaffrey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item on our agenda is an item which we've run quite late on this one.
We are an hour behind.
To provide some time for discussion of the session and the town meeting. And we had invited the moderator and the town clerk. We invited them at 7:30. And we've gone over a little bit. I don't know if Lisa or Don, are you folks still here?
Yes. You have Donna for a short time.
Yep, I have about 15 minutes.
Well, that's all you get anyway.
Good.
So we asked the moderator to come and just talk to us a little bit about, where we stand in terms of getting ready for the town meeting.
Okay, so as, well, as has been posted out on the website and such, we're going to be doing it in the middle high school parking lot. And we are finalizing the layout of the chairs over this week and I feel very strongly that we're going to be conducting a very safe meeting on Saturday. The weather looks to cooperate, and we have put a lot of things into place to make sure that people are kept safe when they show up. I mean, I don't know if you want me to go into specifics.
Whatever you think you want to tell us.
Well, we will be practicing physical distancing in the same way that we did in the gym in the spring. So people will be seated by someone, and we would like you not to move your chairs. And, everybody will be distanced, and we do feel, based on what the Board of Health has told us, that this is the safest way of moving forward with the meeting at this time. So I would hope that everyone shows up prepared to jump in, and there's been a lot of information put out there, and it would be very helpful if people reviewed it prior to town meeting so that we can move this along quickly. There are only 9 articles on the warrant, so we are hopeful that it will move quickly and we will get the town's business done. So.
And Mr. Chair, I did just want to add, so Donna had sent, our moderator had sent some information over, a memo, which we'll be posting on the website as well as the town Facebook page that will detail a lot of how the town meeting is going to run. It will also include a couple of links to the actual town meeting warrant itself, as well as, what else was I putting? Oh, the FinCom flyer. So we'll be posting that, I think, on Wednesday morning, we decided, just so that we can get through that little tiny election we have tomorrow. Just that little blip on the radar, right, Lisa? And once we do that, we don't overwhelm people tomorrow. So we figured we'd get through that, and then on Wednesday, we'd post that information again. So there will be plenty of information out there and available.
Right, and I really do hope that people click on the link within that information and do review things prior to the meeting. But basically, we're following the same protocols we did at the Springtown meeting. And, we highly recommend people wear masks and don't attend if they're not feeling well. But I think that it's been a really collaborative effort to get us here. And I feel really strongly that we've done everything we can do to make this work smoothly and keep everybody safe. So I do hope that people are encouraged to attend based on all of that.
Very good. Well, the select board will echo that hope that folks take the time to educate themselves on issues, review the finance committee report, and come every morning ready, willing, and able to participate and to vote on the 9 articles. There are only a few articles, but they are important. So we encourage you to come and have your say and cast your vote.
And I would encourage people to participate in the pre-town meeting on Wednesday the 4th at 7 p.m. The Zoom link is on the warrant that was mailed to everyone, so they should be able to join that. And I think that will just be helpful to people if they do have any specific questions that are not addressed in the report.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues on the board? Anything you'd like to have clarified?
No questions, looking forward to it.
I must say, it's the only time in recent past where we've had 3 moderators on the phone at once. Many years. Although I would say that the current moderator has put up with more interesting curveballs than any moderator in the history of Nellis, that's for sure.
Well, I'm looking forward to Saturday. I think that it's going to go much smoother than the Springtown meeting did from my perspective. So I am actually looking forward to it. I think this is the beginning of, everybody keeps telling me this role is fun. So I'm hoping Saturday starts that fun.
Are we having fun yet?
I did moderator training this week, and I feel very, very warm and fuzzy and comfortable now.
Oh, you look very warm and fuzzy and comfortable, so.
Okay, thank you very much to our moderator, Ms. Cadivo. Lisa Harden, are you on?
She is. Oh, you're muted, Lisa. There you go.
Is that okay?
Yep, now we hear you.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Lisa Harden, the town clerk. In case anybody hasn't been paying attention, we do have an election tomorrow, the state election. And we will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's state law, that those are the hours. We are expecting a large turnout. Just to throw some numbers out, we have 6,700 registered voters, and so far a total of approximately 4,000 have voted. 1,680 came for in-person voting here in the town hall, and 700 have dropped off their mail ballots in our new drop box, and 1,630 have mailed in their ballots. So we're expecting an 85% at least turnout. That's been the average since 2004 presidential, which would be a total of 5,700. So we could have another 1,700 tomorrow. And if we have a bigger turnout than that, and it's hard to know, if we went up to 100%, it would be 2,700. So that's sort of the range for tomorrow, 1,700 to a maximum of 2,700. We are asking people to wear a mask, and if possible, bring your own black pen, but we will have pens for everyone. There could be a short line because we are practicing social distancing, and we have, in order to do that, we have fewer voting booths than usual. So it might take a little longer for everyone to get through the process. But if you know how you're going to vote before you get here, that would be a big help. There are various candidates, and there are 2 questions on the ballot. And also, I would request that you dress warmly in case there is a short line of maybe 15 minutes. We're not looking for any 8-hour kind of line here. So again, the hours are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and the town hall will be open. The town clerk's office will be open all that time. No other offices in the town hall will be open tomorrow.
But just to add, Lisa, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, offices will be functional, but they will be working from home. The only other people that will be here are Mike and I, and Paul Sims, who does building maintenance, and to try to help out if there's any issues.
I think the Board of Health will be.
And Board of Health, I'm sorry, John McVeigh, the chair of the Board of Health, absolutely will be here as well, so. We'll have people on deck, but trying not to inundate the offices.
Oh, I will just add that if anybody was planning to come in person and when they wake up tomorrow they're not feeling very well, don't think that you cannot come to vote, but if you could call ahead to 376-7046, we can probably arrange for you to vote from your car, just so you don't have to come into the building if you're not feeling well.
Okay.
Any questions?
Nope, I think that's great. We'll just encourage everybody to come out and vote who hasn't done so already. Obviously, we all know it's a very important election. And the good news is it's not going to be lousy weather, I don't think. It's just going to be cold. So.
Correct.
All right, any other comments from the board?
Nothing here.
Well, I guess we wish the town clerk's office the best. Treat everybody who very nicely, please. That would be good.
We always do.
Very good. Thanks so much, Lisa.
Okay.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is review of a voluntary benefit program. to be recommending to town employees. Mr. Kaczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet were some materials in regards to a 100% employee-funded vision plan that's being offered by IMED. This would add to some of the other employee-funded insurances and offerings in the town. And there would be two different plans associated with this, and should the board approve this moving forward, it would be really the only cost to the town would be the administrative time required by the finance offices to administer the program. And it would be entirely employee funded, but it would offer a group insurance option for eye care for the employees of the town. So I believe the finance director is on the line as well. If there's any questions this year, I would be happy to try to answer those. The reason for the timing of this is that this is the time of year that we do have the open enrollment for our different option programs, and this would be the best time to roll it out during the year. Carol, I don't know if you have any other comments you want to make in regards to the plan, the offering, and any impact on your office.
Just that it was offered up by the agent who does the lifetime benefits now as wanting it to be an add-on. They're going to do an open enrollment, and I thought it might be something that the employees might be interested in. There's no reason for the employees to feel they have to take the vision protection coverage, but it's just an added benefit if they're something they're interested in and a group rate.
May I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yes, Mr.
What kinds of costs are involved for Plan 1 versus Plan 2 to the employees?
I do not have that in front of me.
That's okay.
I can give you the different. There's a number of different rates for the Plan 1. It would depend whether it's the subscriber or the subscriber and spouse, subscriber and children, or subscriber and whole family. The monthly rate ranges for just the subscriber to $6.19 a month up to $18.19 for a full family plan. And for the plan number 2, the rates are a little bit higher, but the benefits are higher. The subscriber monthly rate is $7.34, and the full family rate is $21.60 per month. And there's a whole variety of differing benefits depending upon your Plan 1 or Plan 2.
Good. And how do I sign up for that?
It'll be interesting. The payroll deduction will be interesting.
That's correct. Through his payroll deduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions? So, Ms. Underhill?
I do not have any questions.
I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask. So this plan would be offered to all employees of the town, whether at municipal and school?
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
And to collectively bargained employees?
Yes, it would be offered up to the collective.
Not bargained for this?
They have not bargained at this point. We have not had any discussions with them in regards to this specific plan at this time.
So we would be offering a benefit, and we would not be negotiating with them over the benefit.
That's correct. Should any of the unions object to the benefit, we could certainly eliminate those unions from the benefit.
And all communication and all dealings with the plan are dealt with by somebody other than us.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So we are just a payroll pass-through.
Exactly.
We offer the group the availability of the group, and then process the premium payments through payroll.
And somebody files a claim, where does that go?
Not to us.
Directly.
Well, it goes direct to the carrier or whomever, the administrator.
Right. Exactly.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Jermaine.
are other towns using this plan, and have they found it to be satisfactory or the people easy to deal with?
I don't have any information on that. We were approached, as I said, by the insurance agent, whether or not we would offer this up during their open enrollment. If it's something that the select board doesn't want to move forward with right now, that's not a problem. We were just doing it as a courtesy at this point.
I would certainly like to understand if there are other plans or if there are towns that have tried it, had a problem or whatever, but that's just my personal view of it.
We can hold back on this, and there are other insurances, plans and items that we're looking at for next July. Hopefully, if this is of concern, we can hold off on this and vet it and come back to you before April or May with a different plan, or this plan as well with a little more information.
And we can certainly look. We can certainly look to if you'd like, take a few months to research to see what other plans are available, and perhaps choose one at a later time and have open enrollment at the same time as the health insurance in the spring, if that's the preferred option of the board.
Well, please understand, I'm not raising it per se as a concern, but it just seems that we ought to be investigating if we're going to move forward, if it's been used elsewhere and if there are any concerns, or maybe it comes back with a clean bill of health. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's my understanding from what I've seen that this is a regularly offered plan from the Life Plus folks who are very well established, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other options that may suit the town better if it's something that we want to do a little more research on.
Ms. Underhill?
I wish I've had prior experience with selecting options for insurances, but I really haven't, other than my own personal workplace. We did, my company that I worked for did offer IMED for a while. I didn't have anything complicated to do with it, though, so unfortunately I really can't speak to that. I think in general, the ability to offer, have another offering that isn't at a cost to the town certainly doesn't sound like a bad thing. But if we want some more details or be able to compare if other towns have had certain experiences with it, that sounds reasonable as well.
Actually, Chairman McCaffrey, my boys have IMED, and we've had pretty good luck with it. It's actually, we've not had any issues with it. It's been very helpful. I use that in combination with the flexible spending, which is also a voluntary benefit that is offered. And I find it very helpful. It does defray some of the costs. Eyeglasses are very expensive for anyone who wears them. I don't have mine on, I should. I'm actually waiting. I have to wait right now for some that I have. But I do think employees would feel that this was a nice benefit to offer. And we have also had a lot of luck with Life Plus in general. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm certainly not adverse to it. I'm just asking the questions, that's all.
No. We appreciate that you are asking.
Well, I guess that, my view is that if this is an additional benefit that's part of a menu of voluntary benefits, this is something that should be discussed with the union. A no-cost benefit to the town doesn't have some cost associated with just administering it. Might be minimal, but it is something that the town has to spend some time and effort on. So I'd much prefer understanding what is the full menu of voluntary benefits that we may be offering during an open enrollment in July than doing a one-off in November, December. Now, that's just the way I look at it in terms of this is part of the, the benefit and the compensation offering to employees. No, that's my opinion. I'm perfectly happy to have the board make a motion to adopt it or reject it or whatever, but at this point, I think I'd like this as a part of a more comprehensive overview of what the voluntary benefits are and how they work and how they provide value to employees.
Yeah, I'd just soon table it at this time. Let's see where we go and what the options are as we progress down the year. But I like the idea of looking at the entire comprehensive set of options for employees' benefits, I should say.
Well, we can certainly do that and plan to look at that later in the winter. We can provide an overview of all the programs, insurances offered, currently offered to the employees of the town, and then take this item up again after the board's had a chance to review that, with the possibility of having this available in the spring if the board is so inclined.
Well, I would feel more comfortable with that at this point, so why don't we do that? It's not a no, but let's put it into a bigger context so that we can understand what it is in terms of a comprehensive look. And I guess the question that did come up is, are there other cities and towns using this option so that we can this is the one we select, then we can be sure that they are as good as anybody else or better. Why don't you have your HR manager take a look at that?
We will send it over right away. We'll assign that to that person.
Yes, please.
Okay. We've already covered the rest of this agenda, so I think at this point we'd be looking to wrap up. Again, reminding people that tomorrow's election day. We're open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. the Veterans Memorial Building. If you haven't voted already, please take the time to go out and cast your ballot. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Oh, wait a minute. Before we vote on that, discussion is, at this point, Mr. Jasinski, do you think there's any compelling reason or any reason at all for us to hold a meeting on Thursday?
I don't have a compelling reason at this time for a meeting on Thursday.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, a quick question. Do you think we'll have Oak Grove information by Thursday, or is it too soon?
I do not believe we'll have it quite that soon. we certainly could have it for your meeting on November 16th.
That's fine.
I plan on doing that. So if there's, who has any other concern, I just assume cancel meeting on Thursday. We have an hour before the town meeting. Certainly, if we have issues that we have to deal with after the town meeting, we can do that as well. I know there's the salt bid. We could put that on the agenda for Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
We could address that, but I'm not aware of anything else.
Yes, that's all I'm aware of, Mr. Chairman, and I believe that one should be quick. And the rest of that would just be any developments that occur between now and that time, or updates preparing for the town meeting at noon on Saturday.
Okay.
We may
So why
have.
don't we go ahead and go ahead.
I was just going to say we may have one more on-call snow removal worker, the final one. We may be able to appoint him on Saturday as well.
Okay, that's fine.
So.
I mean, we can certainly have time to address these things. Anything that has to go before the town meeting, we deal with it. If we have anything else, we can simply recess our meeting and reconvene after town meeting is over, since it's going to be a lovely 60 degrees.
Thank goodness.
Sure to bring your sunscreen rather than your parka, but in any event.
We're meeting in the school parking lot?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll have
So that's
select
11.
accommodations for all of you there.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried unanimously, and so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you Saturday.